Hi, my name is Martin. Welcome to Strat Chat. We're going to be having a look today at the Kingdom of Ireland, and we're going to be doing a sort of a kingdom analysis in the year 867. We're going to be just sort of thinking about, what makes the Kingdom of Ireland different and unique versus other kingdoms, and what kind of opportunities does it provide to a player that wants to start here in the year 867. We're going to be thinking about the various rulers that exist in Ireland at this time and what that means to the player. We're going to be thinking about what is the population of Ireland, what are the people there, what's their cultures, what are their religions, what does that mean for a playthrough that begins in Ireland in 867. We're going to be looking closely at the land itself, the individual baronies, counties and duchies that make up the kingdom. Which are the best ones, which are the ones that you want to be thinking about developing, which ones do you want in your domain, how are you going to make sure that you are able to pass that on to your primary heir, and which of the counties are you just going to sort of vassalise out and so forth. But finally, we're going to be having a little look at some of the things that you might have as your goals in this game. What might you be setting out to achieve in the early part of a campaign as the Kingdom of Ireland. So let's get started. Let's have a look first at the rulers. The first thing to notice about Ireland in 867 is that it's predominantly a place of one county realms. Desmond, Ormond, Ossory, Leinster, Breffni, Oriel and Ulster are all one county realms. Typically, if you just take here Chieftain Catalan and have a little look at his military, he's got 700-800 troops, he's got a few hundred footmen. It's going to be very, very easy for you to build an army that can crush that. Okay, and that's very, very sort of typical. Oriel's a bit more powerful with 1,000. Leinster has only 500. So there's a variety here between sort of 500 and 1,000 troops. It should be possible for you because you'll begin the game with a significant amount of prestige. You can build an army very quickly. You should be able to take those counties out very, very easily and very, very quickly. The next lot up is the counties that have two counties. So here we have Thomond, and actually Thomond, as you can see, has got two counties, Thomond and Ennis, and up here in Umhain, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. We have again two counties. Two county realms. Now those places are obviously a little bit stronger. They tend to have slightly larger armies. The other difficulty with attacking them is if I decide that I want to attack this chap here and I want to take away one of his counties, so I can go for Thomond or Ennis. When I win that, there's going to be a cooldown period of several years when we're in a truce, and it's very, very difficult for me to attack him again. So it's very difficult to get that second one, or it's quite a long wait to get that second one. For that reason, it's always kind of worth building up enough force to be able to attack these stronger ones first. See, if my first county I'm after is Thomond, so I'm coming from Desmond, and I attack Thomond and I take it, then I can go for Ormond, then I can go for Ossory, then I can perhaps go back and get Ennis a few years later when the truce has expired. But that's the reason that these two leaders present slightly more difficulties for you. The other one is Meath. But Meath is differently structured. You see, this chap here is he has a chieftain title, but he's only got one county. He's the Count of Ailic, but he has a vassal, Athlone. He has his vassal here. So if you attack, and Athlone looks relatively weak, doesn't it, with 584 troops? But of course, he has a vassal. He has a liege lord who'll come to fight in that war. So that's something that you want to perhaps be leaving just a little bit later when your army's a little bit bigger and you're just a little bit more powerful. And then the elephant in the room is Dublin or Dublin, or however it's pronounced in this game. Difflin, obviously the city of Dublin. So Dublin is owned by Ivor the Boneless. Ivor the Boneless has a kingdom beyond Ireland, and this is just one of his possessions, one of his holdings. Attacking that is going to be very, very difficult. If you actually have a look, Ivar actually has 7,000 troops, and they're special troops down here. It's going to be a while before you can take on Dublin. The best thing that you can do is, while you're building your empire, building your kingdom in Ireland, is to be concentrating on murdering this chap. He's got a number of children, and there's hopefully you'll see his kingdom, his realm splintering. You'll see him losing whoever ends up being the leader of Dublin, not having these special troops, and then you find that you'll be able to take it over relatively easily. Once you're already sort of like King of Ireland. Okay, so let's have a look at the population, or the culture and religion of the people that live in Ireland at this time. Now, if we click on the Irish culture, overwhelmingly we will see that Ireland has the Irish culture, the one exception being the Norse culture around Dublin, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's just talk about that Irish culture. There's several. So here we've got some of those traditions. Pastoralists and maritime mercantilism, both of those are very, very good traditions. The pastoralists make those pastoral line buildings more effective with additional bonuses, and the maritime mercantilism allows you to build trade port line of buildings nearer early. And the trade ports are some of the best buildings for development later on in the game, when development becomes important, and also for producing money. And what's interesting about Ireland is, of course, that lots of these counties and baronies are on the coast and potentially could benefit from that. So I think maritime mercantilism is a really, really good tradition. Refined poetry, perhaps, I think is perhaps less important. It does have some. It makes people to have the poet trait a little bit more likely, but if your character doesn't have the poetry trait, it's not making a huge difference. Poet trait, I think, makes you a little bit more relaxed and increases your diplomacy, so it's potentially useful. And also, it does make your court poet better. You can't have court poet because we're not a king yet, but plan is to become the King of Ireland quite quickly, and that's going to be improving your grandeur essentially better. That's what the court poet does, I think. Polygamous is useless really to us. It says here that it allows rulers to have up to 4 spouses. It won't, because it contravenes our religious law, which is monogamous. So that's something that we want to kind of like swap out for something more useful, I think, quite quickly. And monastic communities, probably not hugely valuable to you. It does mean that characters are more likely to be temperate, and temperate is quite a nice trait. It makes you a much better steward, health boost. It's virtuous to insurists, people of the religion that most Irish are. So it's not a bad trait, and of course your heirs and your rulers are more likely to have that trait. But it also makes it a little bit easier to make your children into monks. If you ask them to become monks, they're more likely to accept it in a culture of this type, which could be useful if you're trying not to have your realm splinter too quickly. So the other one is the Norse, of course. So I'm not going to talk particularly about the Norse culture in any sort of depth, because you're not going to begin as a Norse ruler. But what is interesting is this former hybrid culture. If you can become the ruler of Dublin, if it can become incorporated into your realm, then this becomes possible for you to do. You need to get acceptance up to 40%. But then, with some prestige, you could form a hybrid culture, a culture that is partly Irish, partly Norse, and this probably offers some really interesting opportunities. Now, in this particular game start, there would be one of the Norse innovations would become a part. You would just gain a kind of an innovation for free, but you're also gaining long ships, Varangian adventures, and all things, these sort of specialist kind of Viking innovations as well. You'd be able to pick and choose from all of these traditions I think it'd be a good opportunity to get rid of polygamous and have a look at which ones are useful from the Norse ones, and incorporating those into your new realm. So there's some really good possibilities, some really interesting sort of possibilities there. And the good thing about taking this kingdom, becoming the King of Ireland, and being an Irish ruler, is that straight away you're sharing the culture and almost certainly the religion of nearly all of the counties in the kingdom. So let's have a quick look at religion. So obviously they're insularist. Now, it means that they're very, very similar to Catholics, and in fact, the head of the faith is Pope Nicholas, and we can ask him for gold just like as if we were Catholics. There's also two holy sites, one of them in Ireland for insularists, one in, actually there's more than that, there's also Canterbury, which is also a holy site for insularists. The site of Armagh gives additional learning and piety to all insularist rulers if an insularist ruler controls that territory. So even though I've started this game as the Count of Desmond, I'm benefiting from this boost, okay, as are all the other rulers there. So it's worth making sure that there is an insularist ruler in that county. Up here, this is obviously not in Ireland, but this is a site that's holy to insularists. If you decide that you would like to spread insularism over the whole British Isles, control of this site is really, really important, because if insularism controls that, county conversion speed for the whole of the British Isles increases by 30%. And we'll talk about this later. A lot of people playing Ireland will switch to Catholicism at some point. But an alternative to that is to spread insularism eventually over the entire empire. So let's look first at the terrain from the perspective of fighting wars. Whether you're on the attack or on the defence, the terrain is kind of important. And we can have a look here, clicking onto the terrain button, we can see that a lot of the east coast of Ireland is made up of wetlands. They're very, very interesting from the perspective of fighting. None of the different types of military units like fighting in wetlands. Nobody really has an advantage there. But where you might get a real benefit fighting in wetlands is when you've got an army that's much, much bigger than yours, but isn't necessarily better quality. And the reason for that is, if we just click on one of these, if we see here the effects, the military effects, movement speed is slowed down, but it's the combat width, this second one, that's most important, 60%. So if an army is much bigger than yours, it can only actually bring 60% of that army to bear at any one time, meaning if you've got higher quality, albeit smaller army, it really gives you like a big sort of advantage. In this game, playing as an Irish count, duke, king, you are going to get Viking invasions and Viking attacks. Those are very, very good places to be fighting those very, very big armies of not particularly high quality troops. You also get a +5 defender advantage. The problem of fighting in wetlands is that you're going to get heavier casualties, but so is your opponent. What you want to make sure of is that you win, so it's only the person that you're fighting that's going to suffer from the additional retreat losses. Wetlands can be quite good places to destroy big invading armies. The other thing to perhaps notice from the terrain is that there are some hills around. These, of course, are very, very good places defensively. It's a wider combat front than wetlands, but you get a lot of bonuses if you happen to have a castle in one. So let's look at the individual duchies one by one, and specifically what I want to think about is which of these duchies would we like to have as in our domain, and how do we kind of like pass them on to our primary heir without it becoming too split up and divided on succession. So here is the whole kingdom of Ireland. Here is a breakdown of the various duchies that we have. So let's have a look first at Connaught, because I'll look at these in alphabetical order. So Connaught has 3 counties. Most of those counties are wetlands, which means they're not the best for long term, because you get a development sort of debuff when you're trying to develop those places. But in the very early game as a tribal leader, development doesn't matter particularly. So actually, if that was your duchy, it's absolutely fine. There includes here, and these are very, very valuable, 1 temple holding, and it's in Mayo. So if I just look at Mayo, you see you've got the bishopric of Killala, and why can't I? Here we go. Sorry, there it is. Bishopric of Killala, and as you can see here, this place is producing some tax, and it is producing some levies, and depending on how well you get on with your realm priest, a proportion of those are going to be coming to you. So it's very, very worth, almost as the first action of the game perhaps, right-clicking and swaying your realm priest and getting him up to at least 50% to maximise it. So any temple holdings in your realm, you're going to be getting some troops from it, and you're going to be getting some additional money. So there's 1 temple holding there and 3 counties. Let's go down to Leinster, but mostly wetlands. Go down to Leinster. So this isn't working, is it? Leinster, here we go. So Leinster only has 2 counties, but they are predominantly plains altogether. They're predominantly plains. Plains are very, very good for building farms on. Once you become feudal later on in the game, that doesn't matter particularly during the tribal era. But you have also got, of course, a coastal county here. Leinster itself is obviously coastal, which means you can have those trade buildings, which are very, very good. Only 2 counties. Really, you're looking for something with a large number of counties. But if you think about how many kind of holdings you may be able to have, like this leader can only have 3. Now he might be able to realistically, with a good marriage and a bit of work, might be able to get up to 4 or 5. You've got a 2 county duchy here, but Meath is also a 2 county duchy. Perhaps that you'll have like a 2 duchy domain. Perhaps if because these are certainly good duchies. Okay, so moving down to Meath. So Meath is very good. So first off, Meath of course starts with relatively high development. It's not particularly important at the beginning, but if you want to become feudal later, you'll need to get the development. Unless you use another method, you're going to have to build up to I think it's 10 developments somewhere. Dublin's quite a good place to do that, because it's got because in plains terrain you get no problems with development isn't slowed. So Meath is interesting. Meath also, Dublin itself also has 5 baronies. Now you're not going to be able to build into those initially, but later on when you become feudal you will. And so that, with more cities, temples and castles, Dublin is a very, very valuable mid-game holding. And interesting, Dublin already has a trading outpost built, so that's going to save you a little bit of trouble if you're able to get hold of that. It's already got a temple, so you can already be benefiting from that. Athlone is not so valuable because it only has 3 holdings, but again, doesn't really matter at the beginning, particularly when you're still tribal. And you've got here, and you've also got a temple here. So there might only be 2 counties here in Dublin, but they're very valuable ones because they come with these temple holdings as well. Now Munster is one of my favourite sort of starts. And Munster looks really good because it has 4 counties from the very start. So it's certainly one to consider. But they're very, very mixed. Altogether, you only have where you have 2 temple holdings within the whole of Munster. I believe, development 4 over there. A lot of it is wetlands. You also have some plains though, out in Ormond is plains, and a couple of temples all together. So it's certainly not a bad place. If you're starting there, that's where your realm capital is. There's no reason why you can't conquer Ireland from Munster and have it as your capital. Longer term, going into kind of like the feudal period of time when you want to become feudal, it'd be much more interesting to have like sort of Meath and or Leinster. Another, the final one that I want to look at is Ulster. It has a temple holding, and it has room to grow later on. You've got four holdings potentially long term, and you've got Airlick, which already has a temple and the ability to build 2 more. Altogether, Ulster, Munster and Connaught all have 13 holdings. So if you're thinking about being the Kingdom of Ireland way into the sort of feudal era, any of those are potentially very, very good to be your kind of central domain. Just want to have a look at how do you... So let's say, for example, that I'm starting as I'm wanting to be the Duke of Munster. I'm not going to be able to change any laws at the moment, but once I become the Duke of Munster, I'm going to be able to change the law of succession for that county. And I would do it by simply clicking on duchies, then onto the shield, and down the bottom there would be the option to sort of change the law. There's only one of them available to Irish rulers, and I can't remember off the top, it might be Tanistry, but you select that, and essentially there becomes an election for who gets this county when your leader dies. Now, if you control all of the counties, you get all of the votes, which means you can pretty much guarantee, by selecting your primary heir as the duke for this duchy, and pretty much guarantee that he will inherit the whole of the dukedom and all of the counties that go with it. Now, you could, if you do that to Ireland, that's much more problematic. It's much more problematic because some of the other dukes and some of the other counts might vote for somebody else, and you might find that you lose your primary title as King of Ireland. So it's best to leave that in the traditional succession rules. But duchies, it works really, really well. So finding an alternative succession method, it costs 1,500 prestige to enact the law. It's very, very worth considering. If you decided to, it's a bit of an investment really, but my preferred way to do this is to end up, when I control all of Ireland, I would take Dublin as my realm capital. I would want to control both of these counties and the duchy, and I would want to have that Tanistry succession type, and I would do the same with Leinster. Now here we're looking at just 4 counties of being at the heart of my kingdom. They're always going to go along to my primary heir, and that's where I'm going to be investing my resources. So if we just have a look at a county here that I actually possess at the moment, I'm going to be looking to spend my money and my prestige building buildings in these places, okay, in the places that I've kind of been able to guarantee through Tanistry that will stay with my primary heir. So thinking about organisation, so let's say that we become the King of Ireland and we have become the Duke of Meath, the Duke of Leinster, control all of those holdings, all of those 4 holdings. There are 1, 2, 3 other dukedoms. Realistically, what you want to be doing is picking 3 individuals who you're going to have on your council, and you're going to be making one of them the Duke of each of these 3 places. So, for example, you might have a really good steward, and you want to keep him happy. You're going to give him Ulster. He's going to be using those stewardship skills to develop Ulster, but he's also going to be very faithful to you because you gave him that holding. So you'd give him Ulster and perhaps all of the counties in it, or possibly give him a vassal or two so he's not too powerful himself. You might do the same with Connaught, you might do the same with Munster, but perhaps with different people who you think are important to your realm. Another clever thing you can do, and actually this would work in this situation, I've got one heir concubar. Now what I might consider doing is making him the Duke of a place like Munster and giving him all the counties when he's still heir apparent, because as a duke and as a count, he's going to be building up experience and he's going to be getting perks. So when his father dies, he will inherit all of this in his personal domain. He already has all of this in his personal domain, and of course he'll be the King of Ireland with 2 duke vassals. What he would want to do at this point is give Munster up, probably to his own primary heir or his own son. The point is, because it stays in the family, comes back to the primary heir every time somebody dies. So you get this situation where actually you become stronger each time a leader dies, instead of your realm kind of splintering. And finally, I thought we'd talk about what might be your kind of goals, the things that you're setting out to do as a count that begins in Ireland in 867. And the first thing, obviously, is that you need to become a duke, and then you want to become the King of Ireland. And then I think you want to bring any counties that are not in your realm into your realm. And that's usually quite easy to do once you are the king. Other possible challenges are obviously to make the kingdom a feudal one. That's obviously something that you need to do at some point. There are a number of different ways to do it, but I think that's something that you realistically should be thinking about doing. But one particular goal, perhaps you could see it as your mission to make Ireland a Catholic country, perhaps a bit of historical kind of accuracy there, turning it into one of the great Catholic countries in the world. That's one possibility if you feel that that's the destiny of your family. Alternatively, you could decide to change history and decide that what you really want to do is reinforce its insularism and convert Sartrew to convert Dublin to insularism, get hold of the holy site at Iona, and then maybe try to convert the whole of Britannia. That would be a really, really interesting playthrough. A very obvious thing that people try to do is become the Emperor of Britannia, and obviously you've got 4 kingdoms: Scotland, Wales, England, and Ireland. That's challenging. It certainly take quite a long time to do. Very achievable though, as the Kingdom of Ireland. If you stay as the Kingdom of Ireland, it tends to fall behind in development in the mid-game. Places in England are much better positioned to kind of develop in the game. So probably it's worth, if you are the King of Ireland, it's worth making some incursions onto this huge island here and start to take a few key counties, maybe get a second kingdom, whether it's perhaps Wales is usually quite vulnerable and reasonably easy to take. You can often get Cornwall. If you watch carefully what's happening in England, you'll notice that these realms splinter sometimes on the death of a ruler, or you might be able to just do a really, really good marriage, and get hold of parts of big chunks of England. Scotland can be a little bit more problematic because you tend to have like strong Viking realms as well as the Scottish realm, but in time it's all possible for you to conquer. So that's another good target. The others, of course, is to build a sort of an empire of islands. There's lots of islands. We've got the Shetlands, we've got the Faroes, of course we've got the Dukedom of Iceland up here, and it might be that you can build a very kind of interesting empire, and if you get enough counties, you'll get an option to create a new empire that doesn't exist in the game, and it might be that would be an interesting goal for you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it. I certainly hope you go away and play Ireland and enjoy playing Ireland. More to follow. Take care now. Bye-bye.